There are four main methods that we look at of drawing an ellipse, and method number 2 is the one we're going to have a look at now. It's called the concentric circle method. It's called the concentric circle method because we use two circles that both have the same center to create our ellipse. So normally we are given our major axis and our minor axis, which are seen here on screen. As you can see, the major axis is called so because it's larger than the minor axis, and in this instance the major axis is horizontal, the minor axis is vertical, so that an ellipse we would draw through these would give us an ellipse that is wider than it is tall. So one thing we know about the major and minor axis is that the ellipse will pass through the point on the end of each of these. So we've got 4 points already, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And to find more points, what we're going to try and do is draw our concentric circles. So the first one of those is drawn with the same diameter as the minor axis, so it passes through the top and bottom of the minor axis, and the center point is where the two axes intersect. Okay, so that's our first circle, and we can call that the minor circle, and then we just do the exact same thing with the major axis, and that is called our major circle. Okay, so like I said, they're concentric, they have the same center point, and when we have those circles, we already have our 2 points on either end of the minor axis and 2 points, one on either end of the major axis. So these are 4 points that we already have on our ellipse. Now normally when we're drawing an ellipse like this, we just draw it by hand, but to be able to do that accurately and neatly, we need to find a certain number of points. Okay, in this instance we're going to look at 12. So if we divide a circle 360 degrees into 12 parts, each of those parts are 30 degrees. So 12 30s makes 360. So we're going to use our 30 degrees, 60 degrees set square, and we're going to draw a series of lines coming from the center point here out through the two circles. So if we look at the first one of those lines, this is it here. Okay, and any of these points, any of these lines, should I say, are called a generator. And they're called a generator because they're going to generate a new point for us. So with our 30 degree set square, we start here and draw the line out here. Now you can see at this point that line intersects the minor circle, and out here at this point it intersects the major circle. And we're going to use those 2 points to find a new point that sits on the outer edge of the ellipse we're going to draw. So the next thing we do is we draw a horizontal line here from the first intersection point of the minor circle out like this into space, and from here from the second intersection point here, we're going to draw a line down. So that's the line there. So we'll notice that that this point that we have here, this point here will give us the point we're looking for, and that's the first point that we're going to find on the outer edge of the ellipse. And we'll notice about that is that it sits between both circles, and the same is true for all the points we find. Okay, so any point we have, the ones on the major axis sit at the outer edge of the space between the two circles. The points on either end of the minor axis sit right at the inner edge of that space between the two, and all of the points we'll find will sit somewhere within this space between the two circles. Okay, so one common mistake we can make is that we could draw the vertical line from the minor circle and the horizontal line from the major circle. So that's the opposite of what we want. Now if we did that, what we would find actually is an ellipse that would be taller than it is wide, that would sit within the same space. So that's not what we want at the moment. And what we do want, a way of remembering the correct way to draw that is just to think of a cliff. That's what I do to remember it. And a cliff is normally large and it's normally vertical. Okay, so if you think large, vertical, cliff, we're drawing the line from the large circle, it's going to be vertical. Okay, and that gives us that point. So like I said, that's the first point we found. Now if we just continue on around the circle, creating more generators. So this one here is at 60 degrees, We don't need one here because we've already have our vertical line and we have our point along that line. So the next generator here is also at 60 degrees. And because each of these are at 30 degrees apart from each other, going through a full circle, you end up with 12 segments. So it's like the face of a clock. So that's one line. The next line is here. Then we already have our horizontal one here at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock here, 7. We already have the one at 6, 5, 4, and around to where we started at 3 o'clock. Okay, so what we've done here for the first generator, we just copy that, do the same method all the way around on each line. So it gives us a new point, new point, new point, all the way around. So we're remembering to do the horizontal line off the minor circle, vertical line from the intersection with the major circle, and that gives us in total 12 points all the way around. Now when we get that, we've got the hard work done. All we need to do then is join those dots, and when we do that, we have our ellipse like that. So that is how we go about drawing an ellipse using the concentric circle method.